Welcome to Anarchy Entertainment's first podcast. I sat down with Patreck Farley from Farley Productions in what was originally meant to be just an equipment test, but I decided we had a pretty good conversation, so I cut some of it together, and here we are. So, being that it was an equipment test, there's going to be a lot of background noise. You'll hear people talking in the background, the dogs, maybe a little ambient noise. Hopefully, we'll have that better in the future, but thank you for listening and enjoy.
And it's obviously working.
Well, yeah, you've been getting a lot of. Your Twitter blew up how many people in the last day? Like, what, week?
3 weeks I've gotten from 1,400 something when I started really working it to 2,100 now.
That's quite a lot for less than a month.
So I'm thinking if I can get around 600 to 1,000.
Brodus.
So anywhere from 600 to 1,000 a month, then I should be pretty good to getting close to the 10,000 I want by March.
That's going to cost you a shit ton of time, though.
Yeah, but I'm actually connecting with a lot of people I've never even knew existed, so it's actually worth it.
I bet you're finding some pretty neat projects on there. I got excited about something you posted at one point because I thought there was a fucking casting call around here until I looked at the post and it was in fucking like Liverpool or something.
Yeah,
I was like, oh fuck.
Well, I have a lot of following that is in the UK and London area, so like if I see something that's there, I'll share it because a lot of my followers are in that area. So like, oh hey, cool, and then they'll kind of link to each other, which is helpful.
Don't you have a lot of fans in Japan too?
Mainly just because of the karate, yeah.
That's still something, though. You know, they must like your action stuff too.
Oh, they do.
Well, because it's karate.
Yeah.
Karate.
Who doesn't like seeing a good karate movie?
Good question. I still haven't seen, I think, any of the Ip Mans past the first one.
I'm missing out.
Probably. I personally think those movies are a little anti-Japan, which is why I'm not super fond of them.
I'd only really say the first one is just because of the World War II setting. The second is just about him opening up a school and he's having conflict with other school owners. It's if you're gonna say anti anything, it's more anti the West because basically Western boxing comes into play and one of the main villains is a Briton boxer. So I'm like, okay, yeah. And then the third one's basically about his style being inauthentic.
That doesn't strike me as being a credible, in the second movie, a British boxer. That doesn't sound like a credible villain in that sort of movie. You watch the main character beat up 10 black belts in the first movie, so a fucking Queensberry boxer's supposed to be threatening?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
Director saw one too many Rocky movies. He's like, I want to do that. And he just went and did it, and it actually turned out to be very well, but still my least favorite Ip-Man movie. Because I feel like the fourth movie tells the entire second movie way better. Because it has all the same themes. There's a lot of racism themes, like, oh, well, this is just some yellow Asian boy. What can he do to a big white guy with muscles and boxing like me? There's a lot of ego in the room. And in the fourth one, he fights this military, like, drill sergeant. And he's as racist as he comes as well. Played by Scott Adkins as well. So everything the fourth movie did, I think, really outdid the second. Even though the second has a lot of good moments worth rewatching. I'll just probably skip like the last second half of the movie. The first half is like my favorite. Second half, I kind of want to fall asleep a little bit because it kind of gets all rocky. And the third, they really bring in like the challenges between fighting someone bigger than you, fighting someone who's in a professional in your same art, except your arts only differ slightly. And I like the theme of that as well. I also like what's more important, your family or your passion. And Ip-Man chooses his family, but then his wife's like, hey, you can't just throw away your life for me too. You gotta live your life, so go accept that challenge. And then he goes into the final fight in the third movie. And the fourth, he doesn't have his wife anymore. Now he himself has cancer. Throat cancer to be specific. And so he's just kind of visiting his disciple in California, which is Bruce Lee, of course. And obviously it doesn't ever happen in real life. But for the sake of the story, I think it's a good take. Like, what if he had to encounter someone else who's racist, but now he's like 40 years older than he was in the first movie. So he's not as in his prime anymore. so it takes him longer to kind of win these battles. And even there are some battles he doesn't even go out the fight; he'll just kind of spectate. So for half the fights in the fourth movie, it's not even him fighting. So if they wanted to like kind of take that and make like a Bruce Lee spinoff, or it's just like it takes place after the Ip Man movies, so it's Bruce Lee 1, 2, 3, and it's the same actor, I think they'd be really successful doing that because they left it off as Bruce Lee kind of taking over as one of Wing Chun's biggest disciples. But China, they're like, if Donnie Yen can make a lot of money with Ip Man, why the fuck can't we just make more Ip Mans? Right. And now they're like making so many Ip Mans that they're making so many Ip Mans it's just getting watered down. And like, have you ever watched Ip Man: The Legend Is Born? It's a pretty good movie. A little too much wire working, and they even brought in some of the same actors from Donnie Yen's first Ip Man movie, which I thought was pretty cool. Like, oh hey, there's the same actors playing different characters or telling a story of Ip Man before Ip Man was even close to being a master, so he's learning, played by a way younger guy who I think plays the character very, very well, and it was an overall good movie. And they're like, oh, now we're making a sequel. I'm like, it's been like 6 years, why are you making one now all of a sudden? Probably because Ip Man 4 just came out and they're like, money, if Donnie Yen's making a fourth one, we gotta make one too, and they just happen to come around and the same. Actually, this one's coming out next year, but Ip Man 4 came out this year. But it's pretty coincidental they're around the same couple years.
That sounds about the right kind of cutthroat for the film industry, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like if you went and made like this really good action movie without me helping you in the slightest, right? You just made your own thing. And I'm like, Blake was pretty successful doing that, and he had a lot of fun. I want to go make my own action movie, and I just basically take your idea, but pick a very slight twist on it, and go make my own. And I keep, like, whatever you did. Like, say you made a Narnia action movie, or what the fuck ever, right? I want to go make my own version of a Narnia action movie. It's like, oh.
It's like I made Lord of the Rings, then you went and made Narnia.
Yeah, it's like, why don't you just make something different? be original. But I get it. Who doesn't love a good Ip Man movie these days?
I suppose it's a matter of trying to get a slightly different take on same subject material.
Yeah.
I mean, how many more fucking alien movies are we going to make?
Oh, God. I kind of give them a... I thought Prometheus was a step in the right direction. But even then, I feel like they still dropped the ball there.
I didn't much care for that movie because a lot of I hate movies where the conflict's so avoidable.
Go right. Why are you running straight? Claps on.
Not even. Yeah. This thing's a long fucking. This thing is a big tall thing, but it's not wide. Run to either side. The entire movie could have been avoided if somebody had just had condoms.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. The fucking conflict in this movie was completely avoidable.
To me, it just was too slow. The pacing really, really dragged.
Well, I don't think they're ever really going to recapture that magic they had from like the first Alien.
No,
that ratcheting up tension.
Oh, yeah. That's hard to top. I mean, that's like capturing the first Jaws movie, and every Jaws movie that came after that sucked.
I mean, even though the animatronic shark was, even watching it today, it's a little silly, but there's still that palpable tension as you watch it. These guys on the boat and the sharks somewhere.
Yeah, like it's still really good. My problem is like if you watch Jaws 3D, they just superimpose Jaws hitting the glass and then it breaks. And you're like, really, what kind of money do we have? And that's the effect we're going with. It's everyone that said this was good and it got greenlit. You're kidding me.
It's okay if some of the corny movies are okay if, for instance, like Sharknado was probably very intentionally made to look shitty.
Yeah, I want to give a pass to for the effects.
Once
it's
again,
also their first one.
Well, I feel it's acceptable if you're acknowledging that you're not that the fucking 3D. You're supposed to survive on the premise at that point, because like 8-legged freaks, awful looking, but you kind of knew going in they were going for a comedy feel. So I don't feel like you were sitting there going, "Wow, that spider's really ugly."
Well, like watching The Room, right?
Right. Oh my god. Tommy Wiseau now insists it was meant to be a comedy, but everyone else who worked on that movie said initially he was really pissed off because it was supposed to be serious. But now he's decided to lean into it and say, "Oh no, it was always meant to be tongue in cheek." And apparently that's not really what it was supposed to be. But Instead of being one of those guys who throws a tantrum about it, he's just decided to go, I guess ironically got the fame he wanted from the movie, so
yeah, it did really well.
They
had a lot of marketing budget for sure. Didn't he spend like over $1 million on that movie?
He spent a lot of his own money even making it, so he, and then word of mouth probably helped him a lot. This movie's awful, but you should watch it anyway.
Yeah, I like to use that movie as an example. It's like, no matter how much money you have, you can still create shit. So money shouldn't be it's obstacle of making a good quality film.
It's not necessarily a matter of making shit. I feel when you're how you reviews do a 0 to 10 kind of scale.
Yeah,
there's another guy I'm subscribed to on YouTube that does a -10 to 0 to 10, and the negatives aren't indicative of a movie that's bad. It's ironic enjoyment. Like The Room is a -10. It's a bad movie, but you'll happily sit through it.
Yeah.
Because it's fun to sit there with your friends and just enjoy the movie for how bad it is. But that's more fun than a 0. 0's boring.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this is just so nothing is going on. I'm bored to the point I don't want to keep watching.
Movie. I didn't even watch it, but just the trailer alone, I'm like, oh fuck.
Which one?
We're making a movie on just the emoticons, like on your phone.
Oh, the emoji movie.
Yeah, that just looks terrible.
But see, like something like The Room is a bad movie, but I'll bet you it's not one of those movies where you're checking the time bar to see how long is left. You're probably just waiting to see what car wreck happens next. That's still enjoyment. So a high -10 is still ironic enjoyment. It's better than a boring movie like the emoji movie. And then a positive 10 is a genuinely good movie. And yeah, so with all that money, he made kind of an movie, but I feel that had more to do with... the movie's produced well, I think. It's... it
has good quality.
There's a very uneven tone going on here, and I feel it's the writing and the acting where it starts to trip a little bit.
Oh, definitely.
He himself is fucking hilarious. Because as a foreigner, all his emotional outbursts come across really weird. And I think that's what adds the funny. It's that part where he's screaming, "You're tearing my heart." I understand it's supposed to be emotional, but hearing him with that accent and that face just makes it so funny.
Well, I do want some films where I'm not on the screen.
That's what you're saying. You're done with the. You're done with the. Not done with acting, but it's not where you want to be. It's not your focus.
Like, I enjoy it, but at the same time, I like that works where I'm not in front of it.
Come on. I think that's...
It's funny, Mick said my acting was wooden in the last movie. I'm like, yeah, but you don't have to act on set, like, at all. Every time I had to say a line, she was always present. Like, and he goes, yeah, you got me there. I'm like... So having her interrupt you on every fucking take is just...
Well, again, it's a difference in focus. I'm sorry to say I had a couple of friends who watched you, me, and Mick in that movie and said, they very specifically said, you can definitely tell Patreck wants to be behind the camera because you sound like you're reading off a script. As where me and Mick are improvising our lines to try to make him sound smoother. But I told him, yeah, if he sounds wooden, it's because this isn't the end game for him. This is not where he wants to be. He wants to be behind the camera. He's not focused on his delivery. He's focused on blocking and camera work and editing, and so you can only get good at a couple things at a time. And he isn't worried about what he's doing on screen. He's worried about everything else. Let me and Mick worry about the fucking acting.
Yeah, that's why it's good out of the extra hands on set for that.
I was about to say, Mick is a decent actor because he can... As a lot of your outtakes prove, if anyone watches those, he's actually very good at improvising right off the top of his skull cap. And he's funny when he wants to be.
Yeah,
he would get me cracking up in a lot of those outtakes.
I really want to work on getting my acting to be better for this next one.
Well, you have so many other things you're practicing.
That's hard.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, you got to just take what's in the script and try to make it conversational. That's literally all him and I are doing.
I think this
is a very good script you have here, but when you go out there and say the line, you have to ask yourself, if I was having this conversation with somebody in Walmart, would this be how the conversation sounds? That's about 50% of it right there.
Yeah.
What sounds like the most natural delivery of this sentence?
I think we'll get it figured out by then.
Well, as you said, you don't want to be in front of the camera all the time anyway. By the very nature of this project, you have to be.
In this particular one, yeah.
So it's gonna have to take it
In
as
order to
is.
do the action scenes I want to do, I have to be in front of the camera.
Yeah, that too. You have yet to hire someone who is at your level of martial arts ability.
It's actually very hard to find.
Well, I almost guarantee it, because I imagine most people at a high level of acumen probably don't have a lot of interest in acting.
No, not really.
I always found it interesting that Bruce Lee... I don't know a lot about his life per se, but I've often wondered what made someone who is of world-class martial arts abilities want to do it not for real on camera. Doesn't that strike you as a little weird?
Yeah.
I am one of the world's honest-to-God ass-kickers, but I'm going to go pretend to do it on camera. Isn't that a little weird?
Yeah.
His first role was the sidekick on the Green Hornet. I'm a serious martial artist, and they're going to dress me up.
Yeah, that's where Chuck Norris gets more credibility than Bruce Lee in a lot of people's eyes, because Chuck Norris actually took the time to focus on the tournaments and perfecting who he is as a martial artist a bit more than Bruce Lee did.
Yeah, except his movies are fucking
Yeah.
weird, man. Have you watched a lot of Chuck Norris movies that probably he wanted to make, not ones that the studio offered him good money for, like what was it? Not Commando, but he was in a couple of military movies, and that's all well and good. But he had like a couple, like Black and White, I think it's called, where it's this kid really wants to be a martial artist like Chuck Norris, and that's the premise of the movie. This kid trying to get into karate tournaments, and that seemed like a lot more like something he'd want to shoot. You know, and but it's such an odd movie in its overall premise, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Or Texas Walker, or Walker Texas Ranger.
Yeah, it's okay. I enjoy being in front of the camera. I just don't want every project of mine to be in front of the camera, because I feel like I can get much better as where I want to be at if I was behind it.
Well, I imagine you'd get more of what you want to get done if that's all you had to focus on. In your current set of projects, you're responsible for fucking everything. You're your own social media manager. You're your own editor. You're your own actor. You're fucking everything. You're financing a chunk of it. You're your own producer.
That's probably why I get stress migraines, I guess.
So let's see. Before my battery drops dead, tell me about Cobra Kai.
Oh, yeah, you're on to that.
So I imagine it's a continuation of the Karate Kid, right?
It is. It's actually a very good continuation of it. Basically, Cobra Kai takes place 30-something years after the third Karate Kid, obviously.
So almost in the realistic timeline of between the last movie and the actual show.
Yeah, it helps with the actor's age and everything.
Right.
And so all the old characters have like their own kids now. And you can kind of see their families, or their torn families, depending on who you're looking at. And you can see like their kids go through similar situations and issues that they went through when they were younger. And it's done very well. And what I like about Cobra Kai a lot is that they really blur the line between good and bad, because both sides have been doing both good and bad. And season 1, you're rooting more for Cobra Kai for the first half of it, because Miyagi-Do was kind of coming up anyways, because it was second to Cobra Kai. And the second half of season 1, all of a sudden you're like, well, Cobra Kai just became exactly what they used to be in the first Karate Kid. They're just a bunch of assholes. And then like they turn it over of like who's good and who isn't. And one of my favorite characters, Miguel, is even at the middle of season 2, he's trying to like return a trinket that was stolen from Daniel's karate school, and he gave it to Robbie, which is someone he absolutely despises, but he had no choice but to give it to him in that moment. And he goes, "Hey, look, here it is. Not all of us over there are assholes," and just walks off. So it's like a very gray-lined series. Has a lot of drama, has a lot of high stakes, and every season they keep raising the stakes on what's going on. And the conflict between all the characters is also very on point. Like, it's very believable, like this could happen. Sometimes a little too over the top, but it's actually kind of what you wanted in Karate Kid anyways. So I think it fits the narrative quite well. It's hard to talk about this without spoiling anything, really. But it's an overall really good show that I recommend someone to watch.
Especially if they're into your kind of content.
This is softer, though, in my opinion. It's definitely more grounded to the Karate Kid world. Whereas I think mine went more like towards a science fiction type of route, kind of like Metal Gear Solid a little bit.
A little bit.
But I feel like if I wanted to tell the story I wanted to tell, I had to keep raising the stakes, and I had to keep leaning towards something more intense and more like dangerous. And I kept just playing it safe all the time, then I wouldn't be able to get to the stories I want to tell. If I just want to do just a martial arts culture movie where it's just all nothing but karate, then yeah, I could write myself a Cobra Kai, but in my own way.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I was going for. I was thinking more like Killzone 2 in terms of kind of how I really want to do action right now. I want to have weapons. I want it to be fast. I want it to be intense. I still want it to be grounded, but I also want it to be like your gut is dropping to see like what's happening next for the next 10 to 20 seconds the entire time.
Not bad.
But yeah, Cobra Kai is definitely on my radar to keep watching. Dress up for it as Halloween.
I think you have some photos of that on your Twitter, right? Or Facebook?
Twitter and Facebook, yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Your social media.
I think I kind of play a pretty good black belt.
Well, gee, you're a black belt. I fucking hope so.
I just wish the black belt quality they gave you was actually of correct length. I understand it's going to be thin and cheap because they're manufacturing these at such a high cost, but when you can't even wrap it around your waist twice, you're like, come on. And also, who the hell's going to know how to tie their own Cobra Kai belts? I highly doubt anyone who watches the show knows how to tie a black belt or a belt in general, or actually take the time to look it up, because
I was about to say,
so many people's costumes they got their belts tied wrong, and it drives me crazy.
So, there you have it. That was a conversation with Patreck. If you made it this far, thank you for listening, and if you have any ideas for what I should do next with some podcasts, please leave a comment and let me know what you'd like to hear. Hopefully I'll be able to do another one of these with Patreck soon, and we'll see you in the next one.